Hi there, practitioners in training. This is for those of you who are enrolled on the BPS Test User qualification course and are working towards completing the practical assessments of the programme. What I'm going to do in this video is just to talk you through the process so you have a good understanding as to what steps you'll need to complete once you have finished the majority of the theoretical tasks in the booklet of exercises. Thank you. So as you know, for this qualification, there are two main assessments. You have the theoretical assessments and the practical ones. So you should be watching this video if you have completed the majority of the theoretical tasks, which are all presented in the booklet of exercises. So I'm going to talk you through, as I mentioned, the practical assessments. Okay, and these are the two main assessments are the test administration session and the oral feedback session, and both will involve you either assessing an individual, as in a test taker, and providing feedback to a test taker. Okay, so it's very important that you pay attention to the steps that you need to take. So that, as well as you being present, you will need to be working with a test taker. And that's what I'm going to explain, how you go about that, where that test taker comes from, and what steps you'll need to follow to ensure that you have fulfilled the criteria. Okay, so let's talk about the steps, shall we? So once you've completed the majority of your booklet of exercises, you should inform your program director, and that is me. So that means that you'll have to send an email of some kind, just stating that you finished the majority of it, and you would now like to proceed with the practical tasks. Step 2, you should attend an assessment briefing and QA session on the practical session. So that again will provide some guidance on how to prepare for next steps. 3, your program director will check the bank of test users, because we have a range of test users who are available to help you, to work with you, so that you can complete your qualification. And as I said at the beginning, you will need to be working with a test taker on this task. So we will, put in efforts to ensure that you have been assigned a test taker. And please be aware that test takers, they're not just random test takers. They are associated with the actual program. So either they themselves are now qualified test users, or they had put themselves forward to take a psychometric test. So they're familiar with the practice in that sense. So they're very positive and will, of course, do their best to provide you with good feedback and so forth at the end of the session. But I'll go into that in a little more detail later. So your program director will send you details or contact details of your test taker, including their psychometric profile. Again, this will be sent in a confidential manner, and it's important that as part of your program and recognizing your role, in ensuring professionalism, is that you will keep and treat this data with the strictest confidence. You will also need to send your test taker an email introducing yourself and checking their availability to meet and so forth. And of course, you'll need to let them know that the session, in terms of when you need them for your practical, will last between 60 and 90 minutes. It's probably best to say 90. I know that not everyone has, a full 90 minutes to spare, but it's best to at least be realistic and allow some flexibility regarding time. So once you've sent that information, I expect will receive confirmation from your test taker regarding their availability. So you should proceed with sending them an official invitation letter inviting them to partake in the practical session. Please remember to inform your test takers that both sessions will be recorded for training purposes, and you should seek their consent on this. Step 8, both sessions can be arranged virtually or in person. This should be agreed between yourself and the test taker. When lockdown took place, what happened is we were still running test administration sessions and oral feedback sessions, but rather than, of course, doing them face to face, we moved to doing them online. And I suppose this has become a trend now, so it's convenient as well to run both sessions online, and you might find that will work really well for you. So again, that's something that you'll have to decide. Now, the test administration session is very different to the oral feedback session because it's a fictitious scenario that's being presented, and it should last for about 15 minutes. Your focus is to demonstrate your ability to administer a psychometric test and take into account 3 elements of the session, which is the before element, the during element, and the after element. For example, what should you be saying and doing in each of those time periods? And also, what would you be expecting the test taker to do during that period? Now, Step 10, once the test administration session is over, you will need to take a pause ahead of starting the oral feedback session. Now, you may be expecting or hoping that I'm going to give some more information about the test administration session. So that will be delivered in the Q&A session. You also have the notes, you have the information on Canvas and so forth. So I'm not going to cover the actual details of what goes in each practical session as such. I'm only talking about the actual process in terms of how you manage and run these. Okay, so once you've taken that break after the test administration, the next thing you'll need to do is to move on to the oral feedback session. And this oral feedback session is designed to give your test taker feedback on their profile. So once a test taker has taken the test, you will be then sent a profile, and which you have, and you will be working to interpret it and make sense of it. And the goal is for you to feed that information back in a digestible way to the actual test taker. So there is best practice ways of doing this, and that's what we would expect you to observe and understand ahead of your session. So you should consult all the chapters available to you and all the content on Canvas just to make sure that you're fully aware. Of course, you'll also need to observe BPS guidelines, PTC guidelines, as in the Psychological Testing Centre guidelines on how to manage the process. Most importantly, we always like to highlight the fact that, test taker care matters most. So we want to make sure that the test taker is at ease and they feel comfortable receiving the information. Whereas the test administration session is more a formal process and it's more like an invigilation, similar to what you'd expect in an exam style, you'll find that with regards to the oral feedback session, this is more interactive. So we expect conversations to be had between yourself as test user and the actual test taker. Okay? Now, also, you will need to plan the session in advance and make use of the checklists and documents and forms that we recommend that you use to supplement your session, and to make sure that it's a really good one and that you're following protocol. Now, step 12, once you've completed your oral feedback session, you will now need to write up a feedback report. And the report needs to be uploaded to your booklet of exercises. So when we say uploaded, I mean that you need to type it into your booklet of exercises under the relevant section. And the recording of both the test administration and the oral feedback session then needs to be submitted to submission box B on Canvas. So just to clarify, it needs to be submitted to submission box B on Canvas. Remember, submission box A is for your booklet of exercises, and that's where you'll submit all your written work and the actual reports. But in terms of the practical elements, which is what we're discussing today, so that needs to be uploaded to submission box B. Okay? Now, just to clarify again, the test administration session, which is the first part of the practical, this requires you to demonstrate your ability to administer psychometric tests. And myself as program director or the program tutors will pair you with a test taker. In terms of your oral feedback session, we expect that this will last about 40 minutes or so. And the idea is that you're going to demonstrate your ability to provide feedback on your test taker's profile. And again, your focus is to ensure that the session is interactive and managed in an ethical way. Okay? You have a duty of care to deliver feedback in a responsible manner. Again, you should observe best practice guidance from the BPS, from the HCPC, from the PTC and FPA and so forth. And we must remember that words are powerful and they can harm test takers. So we need to be careful about what we say, especially when it comes to describing scores or talking about a person being or scoring high or low. And let's try and remember how that feels by receiving that information and how personally relevant it might be for the individual and how they might take it. Some will take it negatively, some take it positively. Let's remember to use the profile descriptors when giving feedback and ensuring that our descriptions of behaviours do not deviate from that. Very, very important. Now, I hope this has been enough information for you to get started. And if you feel that you have further questions, again, I'd suggest that you join one of our Q&A sessions or write directly to myself, which is Dr. Hunter Hill at theoppractice.com for more information specifically related to the practical assessments. Okay, so far we've spoken about the practical assessments, of which there are two. The first one is the test administration session and the second is the oral feedback session. So now that you're clear, well, I expect clearer about these two sessions, we will discuss more details about these at a later point. But just to clarify that there are two main assessments, okay? You have practical assessments, that is. You have the test administration session and you have the oral feedback session.